Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Finance Webcast entitled Transform Planning and Forecasting Processes with Flexible Enterprise Performance Management. Before we begin, I'll just cover a few logistics. If you can please mute yourself. We will have a time at the end for questions, at which time you can submit your question via the chat box on the lower right hand of your screen. Each of you should have received a link to join the meeting, as well as a telephone number to dial in, or you can use your audio speakers on your computer. I'll briefly go into who we are. I know for some of us this is our first time speaking. Then I'll briefly talk about how the webinar is laid out today and introduce today's speakers. Altius has 20 years of experience designing and implementing EPM solutions at various companies and across a variety of industries. We help the finance function better understand and manage the vast amounts of data that drive their business. Our solutions make the collection and distribution of budgeting data easier, support changing business processes and models, and apply analytics to help you better understand your business. Currently, we have over 3,000 business users globally on our performance management solutions for budgeting, planning, forecasting, authorization for expenditure tracking and management, and several other different business processes. Our longest running client relationship is over 15 years long, and we were recently awarded BPM Partners Best New Vendor for 2015, receiving a 4.75 out of 5 customer satisfaction rating. Today's speakers include our CEO, Mr. Noel Phillips, one of our consultants, Helen Reed, and myself, Sarah Lampy. Today we will discuss challenges companies are facing that do not have data and analytics solutions, such as the lack of control over plans and budgets, the inability to analyze large data sets. We'll then discuss a solution for those challenges, different technology components such as a central repository and analytic tools, and then we'll discuss some of the benefits being realized with enterprise performance management and analytical tools. In the world of corporate finance, company data is your greatest asset. You own it, create it, and store it. However, more important is what you do with it. For example, I once heard a director of customer operations say, "We are data rich, but information poor." Now, data and analytics, often referred to as DNA, are creating great opportunities for companies. The value created is illustrated in a recent study by KPMG and the Institutional Investor Research, in which financial analysts said that companies with a DNA strategy are likely to outperform their competitors and achieve higher equity valuations. But what does it look like if you do not have a strategy in place for data and analytics? Oftentimes we see companies that have difficulty retrieving data from back-end systems. They have a lack of control over their plans and budgets, a poor visibility of valuable data, and oftentimes the reports that they do have access to do not address their immediate business needs. In Aberdeen's most recent knowledge brief, published in September of 2016, they discussed how large enterprises are like most other large things. They are slow moving, kind of like traffic here in Houston at 5 o'clock. This can actually be true for smaller sized companies that do not have the proper tools in place. And what this leads to is slow decision making, minimizing the impact of those decisions when they are made. Now, the business value of DNA is based on better decision making and understanding risk. To derive value from data requires the proper definition of and alignment of your organization, of technologies, and of strategy. In today's webcast, we will focus specifically on technologies. So what is the solution, and how do you get there? How do you lay a solid foundation for optimal data analysis and company growth? And what tools can you leverage to help organize, store, and manage your data to pull valuable insight from it. The Aberdeen Group finds that top performers rely on technology to more easily access data that informs decisions, derive actionable insight from that data, and to communicate plans and budgets across the organization. Now, there are a variety of technology components that help leaders improve their ability to monitor performance and utilize available data for better decision-making, planning, and continuous improvement. To cite just one technology, leaders are 61% more likely to have implemented corporate or enterprise performance management. Now let me quickly define enterprise performance management, or what we'll often refer to as EPM in this webcast, for clarification purposes. From a technology perspective, EPM applications facilitate the collection, consolidation, and measurement of performance-related data. This enables the business to plan, monitor, and execute on its strategy. Oftentimes, this is also referred to as business performance management or corporate performance management. All these terms used are interchangeable. EPM applications include different components to provide finance with intelligent formulas and capabilities that they would not otherwise have to more effectively support organization-wide planning and forecasting processes. These tools include a central repository, workflow engine, query reporting and data visualization, multidimensional database, and security. So let's discuss the first component, a centralized repository. This helps to bring together data across the enterprise in one location. This ensures that everyone is utilizing the same data, creating a single version of the truth for both planning and analysis. I'll show just a brief example of what we see oftentimes when companies have multiple departments creating budgets that are often in different buildings or across different geographic locations, and they're using a tool like Excel, for example. You have multiple versions of various files that are being emailed around that might look something like this. But with a central repository, it becomes something like this. Now, what you really need to do is automate the collection and consolidation of the data in these spreadsheets and store this in the central repository. For example, when using EPM for a budgeting process, it gives you a single view of the budget for the entire organization. This allows the business to quickly and accurately collect and distribute budgeting data for more frequent budget iterations while ensuring that everyone has and is working from the latest data. A workflow engine facilitates and expedites the business process, providing auditing of all actions and decisions. This helps to improve visibility into the status of data submissions. Each submitted budget can be time-stamped and given a version control number. Business users can receive alerts and notifications throughout the planning cycle, such as when new actuals are available or when the latest revenue forecast has been approved. When you have a workflow component, it ensures that all employees are immediately aware of any changes to the plan, creating greater transparency and accountability. Flexible EPM solutions will allow limitless configuration and options of the workflow component. You can see some examples there on your screen. In terms of security, role-based restrictions are applied to users as determined and managed by the business. Next, we have a multidimensional database, which is the type of database that is optimized for data warehouse and online analytical processing applications. This allows users to ask questions like how many units of product A have been sold in Texas so far this year, and other similar questions related to summarizing business operations and trends. Conceptually, a multidimensional database uses the idea of a data cube to represent the dimensions of data that are available to a user. This is often referred to as slice and dice analytics. So from a business perspective, this helps you to have fast and intuitive reporting and analysis. Now to the fun, pretty-looking visualizations. Query reporting and data visualizations tools help you derive actionable insight from your data. They give you visibility into key metrics and business performance, helping to appropriately address problems and recognize success. You can see an example of a dashboard there on your screen, and the types of visualizations on that dashboard help finance leaders to quickly glance at the graphs and pull information out versus looking at rows and columns of numbers and trying to come to a decision. Now that we've covered a few of the components that are in an EPM solution, let's look at what you can actually do with it. You can incorporate business drivers into the ongoing forecasting process. You can perform what-if scenarios and change analysis. You can have more accurate forecast more frequently. I will say that the generation of accurate forecast is nearly impossible without a system in place that can analyze and synthesize information, models, and complexities from across the organization. But with a tool in place, you can easily overcome some of these shortcomings. With that being said, I know we've done a lot of talking and a lot of slides. I know this is best conceptualized sometimes when we can illustrate it. So that's what Helen is going to do for us today. She's going to give you an example of what this might look like in a flexible enterprise performance management system. By flexible, what we mean is a system that is truly built around your business model. And what Helen is showing you today is merely just an example of what is possible. So I will pass it to you, Helen.
Thank you, Sarah. So for today's demonstration, we will be discussing a fictitious retail sales organization named Contoso, which is using a cloud-hosted EPM solution for planning across the organization. Contoso is implementing a quarterly forecast and is able to integrate actual and forecasted numbers. So as Sarah mentioned, one of the key features of EPM Solutions is greater transparency throughout the planning process. For example, here, within the EPM solution, users receive alerts and view notifications, such as when new actuals are available. Notifications can also be received via email or on a mobile device, and these alerts and notifications are triggered at specific points in the planning process, and that's managed by the workflow engine, and I'll discuss workflow in a little more detail shortly. But first, let's get to the core of any BPM tool, so the task of collecting planning data. Planning data typically contains a large number of rows and columns, and users who are used to working exclusively in Excel might be concerned about the ease of data entry with an EPM solution. After all, Excel is actually really well suited to this task. So EPM solutions which leverage Excel eliminate any such concerns. So as we can see here, a user can download an input workbook from the EPM solution into Excel, and this provides the mechanism for collecting planning data from users across the organization. Each user downloads a different slice of data, and they can then make changes to the workbook as they would in a standard Excel file. But the key difference here is that the downloaded Excel file is linked to the EPM solution. So when I choose to save the data, all the data that's been input is automatically saved in the central repository, and my numbers are automatically consolidated with those from all users across the organization. So an organization that once had many spreadsheets saved on a shared drive for each planning cycle now has just a handful of standardized planning templates accessible from within the EPM solution. And the data that was once consolidated in a very time-consuming, error-prone manual process is now automatically consolidated and immediately accessible to all users across the organization for a holistic view of performance, with the ability to drill down for deeper analysis. So for example, a finance user performing ad hoc analysis in Excel can immediately see the consolidated actual and forecast numbers for the entire Contoso organisation by quarter. I can slice the data by geographic entity or by product category, and then I can drill down into the details. So I can look at the Colorado store, Castle Rock, for which we entered data previously, and drill down and see the data that was input against other expenses. Now, EPM Solutions offer many options for consuming data, but the key feature is that all reports and analysis are being performed on the same view of the truth. So here, a user accesses a predefined report from within the EPM solution, and we know that they too are seeing the latest data that has been submitted. So we've seen how an EPM tool can streamline the collection and consolidation of your planning data. Let's now look at how the workflow engine controls the overarching planning process. Budgeting and forecast is a collaborative process and involves input and approvals from different people and also integration of data from different sources. And the workflow engine manages this process from start to finish. From within the EPM solution, a manager can see forecasts that are awaiting their approval and choose to approve or reject a forecast or add supplementary documentation. You will also notice powerful audit capabilities. So every action in the workflow is audited and time-stamped. And this opens up entirely new possibilities in the area of meta-analytics, where companies can actually measure performance of the planning process itself to help identify bottlenecks or highlight examples of planning excellence. So EPM Solutions can help you to regain control of your planning process and can even provide insight into the performance of that process. And this in itself can lead to more frequent and more accurate forecasting. EPM Solutions, as Sarah mentioned, also have many capabilities for enhanced forecasting practices, making use of that wealth of data that's available. So, for example, where we've integrated actuals data with plan data, formulae can be applied to automatically reforecast the data based on the actuals coming in. Driver-based forecast can make use of any data in that central repository. So whether that's previously input forecast data, actual data, or other external data sets which have been integrated with the EPM solution. And EPM Solutions also provide options for both top-down and bottom-up planning, or a combination of the two. So numbers can be set at the corporate level and allocated down based on a set of predefined rules, or alternatively numbers which require local knowledge are input at the bottom level and automatically consolidated, as in the example we saw previously. And finally, EPM Solutions can provide opportunities to run what-if scenarios. So in this simplistic example, we have automatically ranked our stores by their bottom line, profit, loss. So those stores making a loss get a 0, and those making a profit a 1. And we can see this graphically in the report on the screen. And we can see the impact on the bottom line of excluding those poorly performing stores. And we can also take a more detailed look by, for example, excluding the online catalogue and resellers, which we know are the top performers. And we can also analyse the data by region. Again, getting a deeper insight into the data we have available. So with that, I will hand back over to Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen. That was excellent. Just switch my screen back over. So now I'll briefly just discuss some of the benefits that companies that have EPM and analytics are seeing. This research is brought to you from the Aberdeen group. As you can see on your screen, companies that have both EPM and analytics have improvement in the time it takes to complete a forecast. They've improved the time in decision making, improvement in operating margins, improvement in revenue, and in productivity. And this is proof that combining enterprise performance management and analytics gives organizations the tools that they need to make agile, informed decisions and drive improvements in the business. Cloud-based services have made these types of systems easier to deploy and more affordable. With cloud hosting, companies can now quickly analyze large, complex data and deliver faster, more accurate insights without the high cost of deploying and maintaining on-premise systems. Third-party research firm Gartner said that the market is shifting toward cloud-based solutions that deliver a shorter time to value and improved ease of use. Now we'll have a question and answer session with our CEO, Noel Phillips, who will also provide some perceptions on the market.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to Sarah and Helen. They've done a wonderful job of demonstrating the foundational pillars upon which a modern EPM system is built. I just want to take a moment to talk about the direction in which we see EPM usage moving in businesses both large and small, and really how they relate to the type of things we've just heard. The first thing we really are seeing with EPM, performance management, budgeting and planning is a more iterative approach. It used to be that companies would be lucky to get through 1 or 2 cycles of a budget or forecast a year, driven both by the lack of available data and the technology they were using. These days we're seeing people perform multiple iterations of a budget or a plan within the same fiscal cycle. And it really is almost impossible to perform that iterative approach to budgeting and planning unless you have things such as a central repository and a workflow process to actually manage those iterations to make sure that everyone's clear what version, what scenario of the data they're looking at. The second big change we're seeing is in the granularity of the data that's being collected. With the technology available today, people are demanding more and more granular data, more precise data, and collecting it at a much lower level, both in terms of the organization itself and the business process. And once you start collecting data at that more granular level, you really do need to have automatic consolidation in place. You need to have a multidimensional data store to allow you to analyze large amounts of data at summary levels. And the final major change in direction we're seeing is really in the number of users interacting with these systems. It used to be that the budgeting and planning would be controlled by a small group of expert users who would manually collect data from around the organization and then be responsible for shaping and loading that into, if not a large number of spreadsheets, then a fairly simple system. These days we're seeing people actually require the subject matter experts within the organization provide the data at source, so that the data is being provided at that granular level by people who are accountable and really understand the data they're providing. And this can mean that a budgeting and planning process can go from what was 2 to 5 users and actually end up being used throughout the organization, in every department, in every function. And in order to facilitate that, you have to have a system that can manage the workflow of all those users, that can provision security appropriately, and that has an ease of use such that people can use and interact with the system without requiring specialized training. And so really those 3 major shifts in the way EPM is being used, a more iterative process, more granular data, and a larger number of users being involved in the process itself, demand the types of things that Helen and Sarah have been discussing. And so with that, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you, Noel. And we put together a special offer for all of our webinar attendees today. We'd just like to extend an invitation to one of our finance workshops that are conducted by some of our consultants, including Helen, where they sit down and really help you to create a better plan to organize and analyze your data, define your current planning process, and then build a business model around your data. I will be emailing this link if you are interested in scheduling one of those out after the webcast. And just our vision here at Altius is really to partner with each of our clients. We do have a consulting background, so we're able to sit down with each of our clients and really partner with them and look at their current business process, apply best practices, look and see where efficiencies can be made before even bringing in a solution such as EPM. We then can take a step towards implementing one of those in place, but otherwise you're just really automating chaos.